What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Black Man Unfiltered Network. Get your popcorn ready. Ladies, get your glass of wine together right now. Sip it, because we're about to take you on an emotional journey that you've never been on in your life. You're going to laugh, you're going to cry, you're going to be mad, you're going to be happy, you're going to agree, you're going to disagree, and that's what Black Man Unfiltered is about. We want all of you to have a voice, and this is the place where voices are heard. So thank you guys, because we're going to have the conversations that nobody else wants to have, and we're going to come to a medium, we're going to come to solutions, or we're going to agree to disagree, but you're in the right place to do it. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I want to introduce you guys to all the shows that's on the network coming up on this next slide. Peace!
It's clear how my baby's running this the block, cause she fear what you do to you if you get dirty hands and veneer. What you do, what she is, little boy, I tell you this. If baby wants sit, she can sit. If baby says lit, it's lit. Got your bank account and that cute. If she said it loud, it's the truth. If baby wanna ride, she can ride. If baby needs some time, she got time. Got your bank account and that cute. Make it count, how about you? She would put you in the bag, wouldn't even need a planet. If she wanted, she a magnet. They should let her name a planet. Everything she drop like Corona, viral, make the world start over like I own her. She ain't about to set, but they really wanna throne her. Listen, she like bass, she like Hover. Self-employed, moving paper better than some Billy Boy. Made a choice on the regular, she bring a milli home. Click my phone, get my ass up, get a dinner going. Watch she out there, making sure that you all know. Baby wants sit, she can sit. Baby says lit, it's lit. Got your bank account and that cute. If she said it loud, it's the truth. If baby wanna ride, she can ride. Baby needs some time, she got time. Got your bank account and that cute. She can make it count, how about you? She be always making money. If it's raining, if it's sunny, she make time to call me honey every day. Drop a couple bands on the cook, then you pay. Then a couple more on the tip, baby saves. Body 60 every day, imagine holiday. If I get the 50 cents, she get me holidays. Signing with the fly, if you meet her, know it's true. So if she ever asks you, you know that baby wants sit, she can sit.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again. We are back like we never left with another episode of Unapologetic with Mandrell. All right, so check it out. We have a very special episode for you tonight. This is one that I've been wanting to do ever since I started this show, to be honest. Okay, what's up, Primal? Yeah, let's get to the chat. Let's see who we got. Who actually was able to make it tonight. Yeah, like I said, this is one that I've been waiting to do and wanting to do ever since I started the show, because this is a question that I've had Since I was a child, actually. I've always been curious about this, but no one really gave me an answer. So, but first, before we get into all that, let's dive into the chat. Stephen Day, as usual, on time, every time. Thank you for showing up. Primal Studies, thank you for showing up. Gray Pill Podcast, Robbie Privileged, Shamaria Harris, my kid sister. Minka, hello, Minka. I'm glad to see you. You made it. Thanks for coming out. Big Cap, what's up, Vaughn? How you doing, Vaughn Bryant? Thanks for showing up, man. I mean, Vaughn, I'd like to see you. I'd like to see if you could cam up tonight and give me your insight on this, because I think a man of your experience would be able to give us a little more insight into this, because you've lived through a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about, and you were able to see these things in real time as they happen. So, Vaughn, your experience is what I'm requesting from you tonight, if you can. Okay. All right. Who else we got? Queen Betty. Nice to meet you. We got all the members of the Great Pill Podcast in here tonight. Seems like it. All the members from the 36, all the masters from all 36 chambers. What's up, Daryl Long? How you doing? What's good with your brother? Let's see. Luke Hazley came out. Thank you, Luke Hazley. I think you're a woman around my age. I don't know. I have no idea how old you are, Luke Hazley. But anyway, if you listen to the broadcast tonight, Luke Hazley, if you can cam up and give us some insight into it. I mean, because I grew up seeing these things, some of these things I'm going to go on. I'm not old. You know what I mean? Just in my early 40s, I'm 43. So I'm not a Canadian-born Nigerian. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right. I guess it's going to take a little bit more time for everyone else to trickle in. All the same, Robbie Privilege, you know I love you. Thank you for coming. All right. Now, tonight, I wanted to get a little help with this. You know, someone else who, kind of thinks the same way, similarly at least. You know what I mean? And to give me a little bit more insight, another person who's well educated, you know what I mean? Another brother that I've watched and I admire his insight into things. And I do enjoy his content, believe it or not. However, I thought he was the best person for the job, in all sincerity, to help me figure out the answer to this question. And before I let you guys know what the question is, I'd like to introduce my very special guest tonight. I'm happy to have him here, and I hope you all are too. Please, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome none other than the man himself, the chaotic truth.
Salute, sir. How are you doing, sir?
You, sir. How are you this evening, brother?
I'm awesome. It's a lovely Wednesday. It was beautiful where I was at. I did a little bit of running today, and now I'm just drinking some coffee. How about you, sir?
Nice. Doing all right. I haven't catching up on sleep. My body is, I finally decided to listen to my body, and because I've been doing too much.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? My body's like, no, go to sleep now.
Yeah.
And when I went to sleep, had the alarm clock set, slept through that. You know what I'm saying? So
totally understand.
Yeah, I was done today. But yeah, chaotic. The question I want to present to people tonight.
Go ahead, sir.
Is the title of tonight's episode is they probably saw is called the Conservative Conundrum.
Yes, sir.
Reason being is because I've had a question since I was a boy. Why is it that if we have such conservative values, why do so many black people vote Democrat?
It's out of stupidity. It's out of stupidity, and it's out of a lack of, I would say, a lack of understanding. The fact is that a lot of black people vote Democrat because of obviously a few reasons. The Democratic Party is very liberal, and liberalism is totally antithetical to conservatism. Liberalism relies heavily on the government. Liberalism relies heavily on accepting new ideas and new opinions and new behaviors that generally weren't accepted, culturally accepted. I'll give you an example now: transgenderism. The Democratic Party, or the liberals or left, a lot of blacks vote Democrat because, you know, um, the welfare system. Black people love getting things for free. So instead of picking yourself up from the bootstrap and making something of yourself, instead of embracing and continuing human nature, which is the nuclear family, you get a lot of debauchery taking place, like the single parent household. I hear a lot of Black women now, they pride themselves on being single mothers. You hear a lot of people who have kids now priding themselves on co-parenting and things of that magnitude, and they justify it. And you can't justify these ideologies from a conservative standpoint, because the whole idea is to conserve what was once deemed normal and natural. Let's be completely honest. Conservatism is natural to African people, which you are an African, I'm an African. And if you have some sort of melanation, if you're a Negro, you're and sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather here. I apologize for my nasal sounding.
It's fine.
But the Black people, from what I have seen and observed, though conservative by nature, one thing I noticed about a lot of Blacks is they may have one gay cousin, but they sit up there all day long and talk about gays. But when the government or the white man says it's okay, they'll say, well, you know what? I do got a gay cousin, but their entire family is straight. When the white man says, oh, there's nothing wrong with you not being married. The white man to make TV shows and movies about single parent households. He'll give a Negro a movie deal. They'll show themselves as single parents. And then all of a sudden, Black people are like, well, yeah, ain't nothing. Yeah, you know what? They had that in the movie. It's cool. So that's why, it's the abandonment of responsibility. And that's what liberalism is. It's abandoning responsibility. When you are a conservative, you have to look in that mirror and you have to say, you know what? I'm a failure, but I'm going to pick myself up from the bootstrap and do something with myself. This is the greatest country on the planet. I'm not going to make any excuses. But the liberals, they'll say, you know why you are F up in life? It's because of slavery. And like most people do, they'll say, well, you know what? That is right. I'm, my great grandmother was a slave, and maybe that's why I'm an F up. But a conservative like myself would say, no, you're a fuck up because you went to school and played around. You didn't take advantage of the programs. You didn't go for the hard majors or degrees. And that is why you are in the position that you are right now.
You're talking about self-accountability.
There's no self-accountability. And a lot of people, naturally, they'll rather blame it on whitey or blame it on the system instead of blaming it on themselves. And so that's why I think a lot of Black people vote Democrat. And then also a lot of Democratic leaders, I will admit, tend to be very charismatic. The Barack Obama, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, obviously I voted for him and I'm very conservative, but he was cool. He was, Barack Obama's 6'2". He's suave. He's you can just tell he's a cool dude. And it's just like a lot of Democratic people. They're more or less entertainers, if anything. Mayors, like, let's say Kwame Kilpatrick was a fraternity brother of mine. He was very charismatic. The city, Detroit, loved him. Democrat, but look what he did. But he was voted in because of his charisma rather than his actual talent. And we know where Detroit went under his reign. And the fact is that a lot of Democrats, Bill Clinton, for example, back in the 90s, if you're not old enough to remember this, I certainly am. In the 90s, people were proclaiming that Bill Clinton was the first Black president. Can you imagine this? All because he played the saxophone
on the Arsenio Hall show. I remember this.
Arsenio Hall show. He had a little bit of suave. I will admit he had a suave to him. Excuse me.
Mhm.
He has
No
some
problem.
he has some suave to him, but he wasn't like Ronald Reagan or a good president. And not to say Bill Clinton was a bad president, but Ronald Reagan, is a boring old white man, and that doesn't appeal to a lot of
African
immature
Americans.
minds.
It doesn't.
So why not vote for the liberal who's cool and they embrace people pretending to be ducks and alligators and whatever you want to pretend to be. Just vote for me. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the whole freedom of self-expression and all that. That's a relatively new thing. I want to get to a comment before I go on my piece. Right?
Hey, let's do it, man.
Yeah, Primal Studies said something very interesting. The left seems to embrace the victimhood mindset. Thus, I will never align with them.
Yeah.
Primal Studies. Here's the thing. I agree. I don't agree with a victimhood mindset. That's a quick way to find yourself at the bottom of the barrel, in my opinion. I'm a victim. Now, there are people who really are victims, like those people in South Africa during the apartheid government. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, hey, what do you expect? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're going through something like that, like, what do you expect, dude? Look what happened. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you go visit South Africa today, it's not in shambles. It's not like the Black community of America, where you still have people claiming to be victims and stuff like that, left, right, and center. But
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Now Luke Hazley says, I don't know if it's only black people. Many have fallen for getting everything free concept. Then they don't realize that nothing comes free. Yeah, that's also true, Luke Hazley. I agree with that as well. Nothing is free when you have all these social programs. Now, me politically, I'll be honest with everybody. I'm a very much so a middle of the road person. And the reason why I had this question is because I believe in civil rights, absolutely. But at the same time, I do also hold dear and believe in having conservative values. You know what I mean? So I believe even as a child, I always even innately sought balance. Like there's a way to do this in a balanced fashion. Like too much this way, like Reagan, too much to the right, you get this. Too much to the left, you get what we got now. You know what I'm saying? Even with Trump, there's a bunch of stuff in Trump's tax policies. I was like, okay, I can get with that. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting there reading the stuff. Then I take some of Trump's policies. I did this little experiment. I printed some of them out, and I would ask Black people, what do you think of this policy? I'm with that. What about this one? Oh, that. What about this one? I don't know about that one. I have to look more into it. What about this one? Yeah, I could do that. And it's like, you do know that these are all Trump's policy proposals, right? But they hated Donald Trump. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, he may come off as an asshole on TV, but you agreed with the vast majority of his policy proposals.
The man was the greatest president in modern history, if you ask me. I just want to point that out.
Who, Trump?
Absolutely.
I would say he's the most entertaining.
I was devastated when he went out of office.
Why? That was hilarious.
Well, here goes the thing, and not to make it about Trump solely, but
right.
I'll give you one policy. Donald Trump made it a federal mandate not to allow transgendered women to be in the same population with biological women. Joe Biden overturned that. Look at how many sexual assaults have taken place since this crazy old fool has been in office. This senile fool has been in office. And that's just one policy that I can name. I can name you plenty of other policies that Trump implemented that was overturned or that was rejected by the left. The man, he saw something in this country and he said, you know what? I need to correct the ills of what this party has done. Talking about the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump, though not a White House, not a true DC politician. No, not at all. But let's be honest. I believe that his policies, particularly that one, protected the rights of biological women and biological men. And I think that that's something that is overlooked here.
And see, that's one of his policies
So
that I
yeah,
wholeheartedly agree with as well.
though he may not be, in terms of Obama, in terms of charismatic, he may not have given that presidential look, that stiff look, but the man honestly did so much for this country. And so we have to thank Trump for that. And I hope Trump actually runs again for the 2024 election. Now, Mandrell, go ahead, sir.
No, yeah, I'm still here. You gotta excuse that sometimes. Sometimes I'm moving stuff around, so I mute myself and kill the camera and
no problem.
Get stuff out of my way, right? So here's what I did, Chaotic. All right.
Go ahead, sir.
I did some research and I tried to track this thing back, right? Because I wanted to know, like, you remember, because of the Emancipation Proclamation, it was done under Lincoln, and black people were Republicans at the time because the Republican Party was the party of civil rights and equal rights, and human rights, right?
Yeah,
that's what black people thought anyway. So I wanted to find out where this divide went, and I think I found it. Okay. All right. Back in the day, okay.
How far back in the day, sir?
Before the 20th century started. Okay. The Emancipation Proclamation, 3/5 compromise. No need going into detail about it. We all know about it, right?
Sure, why not?
Okay. But in my opinion, the Republican Party wasn't really a natural place for African Americans, even at that time, okay? Because here's the thing. Now, let's get to the 20th century, right? President Roosevelt took the Republican Party from being a more progressive party to being a more party of white collar and business interests and upper class interest party, right? Now, African Americans who moved to the North and were allowed to vote, they found the appeal of FDR's New Deal, and they found that very attractive, right?
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't? Jobs, bro. Jobs.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
up here we can vote and whatnot.
Yeah.
So fast forward to during the late 30s, the 30s, right? During the late 30s and late 40s, the Democratic Party had turned from. You can see the shift in the Democratic Party turning from a party that was pretty much held hostage by states' rights to a party that had embraced civil rights. You know what I mean? And you can see it in these politicians' speeches and whatnot, the things that they were saying, for instance, Harry Truman, and the things that they've done. Like, for instance, Harry Truman integrated the armed forces after World War II, and you can see the term began really hardcore in the 1948 Democratic Convention when Senator Hubert Humphrey from Minnesota said, and he said, and I quote, "The time has arrived in America for the Democratic Party to get out of the shadow of states' rights and to walk forthright into the bright sunshine of human rights." This is how so people hear that. That's how you get the vote of the underprivileged. Because at that time, fair enough, blacks in the South were underprivileged, true to form. Can't argue that. You know what I mean? Not all of us, but for the most part, you had the whole Ku Klux Klan was in full force and all that crazy stuff. Now, at the same time, the Republican Party starts to take a shift away from its history of emancipation and civil rights. For instance, Dwight Eisenhower said that integration should happen slowly and intermittently. Eisenhower wanted to introduce that, okay, these states here, now you're going to integrate. Fast forward a few years, okay, now these states over here, now you integrate. And he wanted to limit it to certain things, like schools wouldn't integrate first. It would be like grocery stores and restaurants and stuff like that, then schools, and then other things. He wanted to have integration going by stages. Now, all this doesn't sound appealing to black people, especially in the South. They wanted their civil rights and they wanted them now. They're like, no, we want it now. So when you see this shift here, here's where it happened. You see one party going one way. You see another party going from its history into another direction. Now, out for the interests of white collar and business interests, not a bad idea. Period. In my opinion. You know what I'm saying? People, because that's why you have this whole saying that it still goes on today. You hear like hillbillies say, well, the Republicans are for the rich, the Democrats are for the niggers. Who's for me? You know what I'm saying? White hillbillies say this kind of thing today, and this is how they feel, and this is one of the reasons why. And then you have Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and he signs the Civil Rights Act of 1965. And it's at this time the shift is done. The shift is done. Black people are wholly Democrat now at this point, for the most part, pretty much done. And then the Republican Party opposes it, and this was led by Senator Barry Goldwater, who called it. He called the Civil Rights Act and the Voter Rights Act a piece of communist legislation. And this was their code word. Instead of saying the N word, they would call policies that would include civil rights for Black people and equal rights for Black people and Latin people communism. They would call it communism. That was their code word at the time. Then you get Reagan.
Who was one of the greatest presidents of all time.
Depending on how you look at it and depending on what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because Reagan, when it comes to Black people and Latins, no. Socially, because he was a racist. Come to find out. He actually like Black people suspected him at the time, but there was no hard evidence, you know. But over time, it's like, yeah, and then now that these audio recordings have come out about him, especially the one that he called Nixon, and who he was a governor at the time, and he calls President Nixon on the phone and says, I have it right here. Last night, I tell you, to watch that thing on television as I did, Reagan said. Yeah, Nixon interjected. Reagan says, to see those monkeys from those African countries, damn them. They're still uncomfortable wearing shoes. And Nixon just laughs. That's the transcript. The actual audio recording, let me copy this link and put it in the chat just in case you want to. It's the first audio recording that's up there. That's up there. You guys can listen to it if you want to. It's like 19 seconds. But because Nixon recorded everything, you know what I'm saying? Everything. Now, Reagan began his presidential campaign in Philadelphia, Mississippi, which we all know is that place where those 3 college students went down there and got done in by a bunch of hillbillies who were racist. Now, he's the originator of the welfare queen quote, you know, and absolutely opposed Martin Luther King's birthday becoming a federal holiday. And he famously said, no way in hell am I going to sign a bill that would put sanctions on those apartheid government in South Africa.
Well, I'm just waiting for you, Mandrell.
Oh, yeah. See, this is some of my notes. I was like, what I'm saying. And the point is to say, this is where Black people get this kind of thing in their head. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this is why a lot of Black people are essentially stuck in the past. Let's talk about what you just said, the last thing, apartheid.
How long ago was that?
Apartheid. It doesn't matter how long ago it was.
Right.
We can arguably say that apartheid was actually the first time South Africa had ever even been a stable country. Crime rates were low. South Africa leads the globe in grapes. I don't know if you knew that. You could Google it, find it out. It's a hellhole there. It's a hellhole to the point where even the police, you talk about defunding the police were defunded in South Africa 20 years ago because they cannot provide the services provide the services for the people, because first of all, the people aren't obviously paying the taxes for the police, but the police aren't willing to, deal with the anarchy that takes place in South Africa. South Africa has some of the most horrific xenophobic cultural norms on the planet. They kill Nigerians, they kill other West Africans like it's going to the candy store and getting candy. You should see documentaries or even speak to people from South Africa. They have to form their own security services to monitor and control the people. South Africa is a shithole. And yeah, you have Pretoria, you have other places in South Africa that are beautiful, but let's be honest, that's because the whites are there. And don't get me wrong, you have a lot of poor whites in South Africa, degenerate whites, but generally speaking, apartheid may have been a good thing for the South African. There are actually South Africans that have called into my channel who have said the same thing. There's a guy named S.A. Red Pill who calls into my channel from, I think he's in Soweto. And he actually tells me him and his father talk about, man, it was probably better under apartheid. And it just goes to show you that these savages were probably, and I don't mean to say that they're all savages, but their culture is savage-like. And they probably were like this before the white man came over there. They just didn't have guns. They probably were killing each other, raping each other. All types of horrific acts were probably taking place. They didn't build the country up until the white man got there. So, when black people say all these things about apartheid or even like integration, before integration, blacks had, and we all know this through history.
We had black businesses, black hospitals, black everything.
So how good was integration? How good really was it? And could it also be that maybe Dwight Eisenhower, who was one of the greatest presidents of all time, who, by the way, and I'm glad you did history on it, was Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be that maybe he foresaw integration and he said maybe it might be too fast because you have a large portion of African Americans who don't have refined behavior skills, who are illiterate. And when you're mixing them and mingling with other groups of society, maybe it may cause even more problems. Maybe that's why blacks weren't really allowed at these. Listen, an old guy that I used to play chess with years ago, he told me this. Now, he's an African American of slave descent. He said, want to know one of the reasons why up north they didn't want blacks at these restaurants? Because he said they bought that primitive Southern vernacular behavior up north, and they would be at the restaurants acting a fool. And I said, damn, what's so crazy? You go to Applebee's right now, look who's acting a fool. Look who's giving the waitress or the waitress attitudes. I've been in places where black people have literally tried to get out of bills by accusing the waiter or waitress of being of racism. I've seen it with my own eyes. So is it possible that blacks were introduced to a system that they probably were not ready for in full scale? Maybe integration should have only been for the elite blacks, the educated blacks, the intellectuals. It probably wasn't really a good thing to integrate all blacks. And truth be told, it probably wasn't a good thing to integrate all people. But the fact is, a hillbilly knows his place. A hillbilly is not going to go to a 4-star restaurant, a Michelin-rated restaurant, even to this day. But you have black people, blacks from I hate to say the projects, but because there's some good people in the projects, but there's all types of blacks who don't have certain refined skills. And they will try to go to Ruth Chris. And they'll be in there acting a fool. And am I lying, guys? People live stream and do all type. Listen, a black man last year who owned a restaurant, he had to stop the music and tell these black women, stop shaking your ass in my restaurant.
I saw that video.
And that's not the first time I've ever seen it. I've seen this type of stuff in real life. I make it an effort to go to whatever city I'm in. The city that I currently live in, I make an effort to go to black restaurants. I've seen black owners who are men. They will have to check people for their behavior. Hey man, don't come in here doing this because you're messing up my business. Because there are people, there are mayors, councilmen and women. There are all types of people who come here, and they're not going to come here if you nigger it up. And I think that's legit. So whatever, okay, and you were talking about Ronald Reagan. Whether Ronald Reagan was racist or not, the blacks in the 80s were living 1 billion times better than the blacks in any African country, than any black island, and you already know in all parts of South America. But that's just the truth. So whether that man was racist or not, blacks in the 80s were still becoming doctors, still becoming engineers, still becoming, they became school teachers because there was a, so whether this one man who was senile and had Alzheimer's at the time, whom I still consider one of the greatest presidents of all time, whether or not he had Alzheimer's or not, black people still flourished in this country at that time period, while their brethren in Africa were living in mud huts and had no toilets. So this country, whether there's racism or not, you're living way better here than not. And I'm glad you pointed out that it was the Republicans that freed your black ass, because that's the truth. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican, and those are truth. And I'm glad you brought that up. And to a degree, the parties did change, but the Republican Party has always been a laissez-faire party, meaning, hey, y'all do what you know what laissez-faire is by being in the army, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the military. Hey, look, y'all just do what you do. Just get basically being
get the job done. I don't care how you do it. Yeah. I don't care
how
you do it.
How you do it, get it done, follow the damn law while you do it.
Right. This is your task.
Yeah.
These are the rules and barriers that you got. As long as you finish it, as long as you don't go outside of this, finish the
as long
job.
as you're not breaking the rules.
Right. I don't need to know. Yeah. I don't need to know anything else.
Yeah, or generally if I don't hear about it. But other than that, I listen, man, Mandrell, I commend you for taking these notes. But you already know I'm the chaotic truth, man. And I listen, I give smoke to everybody. I just made a 5-hour video about that white piece of shit, that boy that shut up all those black people. And am I saying all whites are pieces of shit? Absolutely not. But that little shit is a piece of shit. And so the fact of the matter is that, yes, I give smoke when it's due, even with black people. Large numbers of black people, the reason why they probably didn't want them in these restaurants back then is because just like now, they probably were acting a fool in the 30s and the 40s. And whites probably said, damn, man, I don't mind eating my eggs and bacon with them, but they just act a fool.
In the South, it depends on where you are, because like it was like that in the North. That was the general consensus, right? But in the South, it was what it was. It was just dumb. You know what I'm saying? There was just largely dumb white people who just felt like black people. It weren't a black person's place to eat with a white man. Yeah, you know. So while the America as itself wasn't all peaches and cream, 100%. It wasn't 100% what it should have been. At the same time, I get what you're saying. Like with apartheid, people talk about the atrocities and things like that, but then it's like, but at the same time, it's more stable. There's more law and order. You know what I mean? Things like that. So I can't deny that.
I bet you there's some blacks right now in South Africa that would rather live under apartheid now, because I'm telling you, guys, go look it up. Go look it up yourselves. Go look up how many black South Africans. There are a lot of well-to-do South Africans, by the way. But go look up how many South Africans live in shanty towns and look at the amount of violence that happens in Johannesburg.
Yeah,
Soweto.
I've been to Joburg.
Yeah,
I've been to Joburg, and I talked to a Canadian-born Nigerian about my short time in Africa. Right? I said, dude, listen. He said, would you go to Africa to visit? I said, no, sure wouldn't. He's like, why not? I said, you fuckers are crazy. Yeah. I can talk to you about that offline because it was a crazy situation. I said, look, man, y'all can have it. Go to Africa. No, you can have it.
People ask me all the time.
I'll stay here.
Mandrell, people ask me all the time, why do I say some of the things that I say? And I say it because, first of all, I am Nigerian. But second of all, I've taught in these schools, and I can tell you, having direct links to Africa, I can tell you that you think it's violent in America. You think that it's exactly the law.
They don't know. They don't know.
And courts here this is heaven here.
Comparison, yes. Yeah. In comparison, people just don't know, dude.
They don't know. I tell people all the time, that scene in Menace to Society when Kane and his cousin were in the car and they got carjacked and his cousin got shot and killed? Mm-hmm. South Africa, imagine that going on every day, and imagine a 500 incidents like that in South Africa every single day. That's South Africa.
It is. Now,
Yeah.
we come to this, right? And I want to get to a little bit more to the modern day, right?
Yeah.
Like why we more of us don't vote Republican. I ended it at Ronald Reagan because at that point, of course, after that we had George H. Bush, and he was ousted after his first presidency with the Gulf War and everything like that. But after Reagan, I think black people were just had enough. You know what I mean? But their minds were clouded with his views on social issues. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what clouded it. Now, fast forward to present day, you've got Fox News. Well, I won't just say Fox News, cable news. I'll just be undiplomatic about it. My honest opinion, cable news as a whole, it's all trash. Like you have CNN and MSNBC that kisses the butt. It smooches up and caters to things that they know they shouldn't. Like they sensationalize things like far too much. And Fox News that just they won't even admit when things are wrong. And like a lot of times, like take Tucker Carlson for instance, with this last shooting, with the white kid up in Buffalo, right?
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson. Here's what the divide is. It's the language. This is how they do it. It's with the language. Because I've identified this long ago. You listen to MSNBC. Oh, everything's okay. It's okay to be rainbow or alphabet. You know what I'm saying? But you have the other ones, Fox News. They'll say something completely different, but the language is different. Like, for instance, take Tucker Carlson, how he described this incident. He's by memory, he's like they use words like teenager. A young teenager did it in a bunch of strangers. You know what I'm saying? They never mentioned the racism. And then the manifesto, he said, if you read the manifesto, it doesn't read like a manifesto. It's like, no, but when you yourself, like myself, read the manifesto, it's like, no, that's exactly what this is. It is a manifesto. And see, I'm not the only one who sees this. Like, they won't call it what it is. It was a white terrorist who committed an act of terrorism on American soil. And he should be held to the full penalty of law as a terrorist. From my perspective, this kid, right? So they won't even acknowledge that he was a young white male. They won't acknowledge that his motives were racist, even though he himself, the assailant himself, said that it was because of racism that he's doing it. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. And then you have the conservatives. Pardon my French. The conservatives, which they're not helping. Like, I mean, you have people like Candace Owens. Right? Here's why I don't care for Candace Owens, right? Here's my reason why. I wish the sister well, and I hope the money's worth it. But whenever something like this happens, like say George Floyd, right? Take that perfect example. George Floyd incident happens. Instead of her saying, hey man, this is messed up and we need to do something about the police brutality. Focus on the police. She doesn't focus on the police brutality. She makes a video saying why she doesn't support George Floyd and why she's not touting him as a hero and he shouldn't be taught as a hero. And I'm just like, okay, I agree. What has he done to make him a hero? Nothing. He's going to be a martyr because of this, but he ain't done anything to be a hero, so I'm with that. But that's not the point. Like, she wouldn't stick on the point. And other people do it too. Other black people do it too. And I'm just like, that's how they're doing it with their language. They get paid to make videos like this. And that's why they're not liked largely by black audiences. They're paid to use gaslighting language to veer people off the subject. And it's to make white people feel better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've heard some people say this about you, and I'm saying this on the air. You're not that. You're far from it. You're far better. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
You are. I'm saying it. Yeah, I'm not saying it to be nice. This is my honest opinion. You are far better than that. Because I haven't seen you do that. You're not making your content to make white people feel good. No, you stick on the topic. and you do talk about the topic. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, this guy's doing it the right way. But yeah, that's the thing about the other ones, and that's why you hear words pointed to them like sell out, this and the other, because they really are selling us out. I was like, yo, come on. You don't have to make a video about why you don't support the dude. It's the police brutality part. That's why everybody's pissed. Nothing really to do with him. It's just the police did something awful. And so that's what I'm saying. You see black people doing that on television or on the internet, and then you find out that those people are Republicans. That steers people away from the Republican Party because they're like, okay, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, and again, with the language of talk, but fast forward, and you're looking at today, you look at MSNBC, black people see that and they're just like, yeah, I don't want to have anything to do with that either because they're just full of shit. Those are full of lies. You know what I'm saying? So them and CNN is like, yeah, but they're full of shit and they're full of lies. But then Fox News, they're full of lies too. So it's like, where do we go? And I think present day, that's why I think we're so confused. People want to be given the answers. They don't want to take the time to learn what these policies mean. They don't want to learn how to read policy and understand the vernacular that's being used on these documents. So if they don't understand the vernacular, they don't really know what it means. They want someone to tell them to do it. But now it's not like that. If you want the truth, you have to go get it yourself. It's one of those bootstrap things that we have to do that you mentioned earlier. You know what I'm saying? Got it? Yeah, it's one of those bootstrap things that we have to do. We have to do on our own. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to come to you, people. We have to, if we want the truth, we have to read these documents. And if we don't understand these documents, get away from cable news. Get away from cable news. Please, if you want conservative content, go to Chaotic Truth. I mean, and it's not to plug his channel per se, but really, go to the guy's channel. You do get the truth. Yeah. He may be chaotic. You may not like it, like the language that he uses sometimes, but it is truth. Yeah. And, you're not leading people down the wrong path. Yeah. You really do care about black people. I really do. I say this because people have asked me, why do you associate with him? I said, because he gives a shit. I do. He gives a shit. I said, why you guys can't see it, I don't know. But there's a guy who actually does care. I do. And that's my thing with present day. I think we're just confused because we now most of us see that when we're watching the news, there's no real direction to go to. We can't go to CNN and the liberal media and get real answers. We can't go to the conservative media and get real answers because both mediums are biased. They're too far left and too far right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. No, that I will agree with. Yeah, I mean, and like I say, when people see black Republicans on TV, they see the black people using the same gaslighting language as they see Fox News. And you see left-leaning people, you see them using the same gaslighting language as left-wing news. And so people are like, yeah, they're both full of shit. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And that's when you lost them. There it is. Well, yeah. So I've always said the media, and I've said this a lot on my channel, the media is about making money. And race sells. Most racism is fictional. I would say 90% is all the things we hear is fiction. It's not real. It's the game of telephone told by 1,000 other people. Nobody's actually fact checked. Nobody's dug into the details. But because we're brought up believing in this tribalism based on melanation or the lack thereof, when we see a race story on TV, we go to the screen. Oh, it's a race story. And the people at CNN, at Fox, at all the major news outlets, they've known this for years, especially before social media. Mm-hmm. And so they sit in the office, and obviously, and they say, I went over analytics, and I noticed when we talk about science and math, the ratings are in the shithole. But we talk about race, they go through the roof. So somebody go find some race stuff, find some black chick that got beat up or something by the cops, and that's what they do. It is. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what they do. They have to constantly get viewers to watch them.
because they need the sponsors for the commercials and whatnot. They need the sponsorship. They need to pay the report. They need to pay the people. They need to pay the cameramen, the reporters, etc. Race sells. And I think the beauty, now you say you don't agree with Candace Owens, but I think the beauty of Candace Owens is that she's telling Black people that you are not victims, you're not being oppressed. And if you guys don't respect me for, I guess, being non-FBA, then respect Candace Owens, who is FBA saying this. And there's other people who are who are FBA saying this. You're not being oppressed. This is the best country on the planet, and you have convinced yourself that you're a victim, just like this terrorist convinced himself that Black people were going to replace white people. And this dummy, he had to drive 2 hours just to find Blacks. That's right. It just lets you know how stupid he is, because there's not that many Blacks in the country. Blacks are only in a few cities. That's it. You can't go to Nebraska, Idaho, Vermont, North Dakota, South Dakota, and find
Wyoming. Yeah, right.
Wyoming. What's the other one? Utah. And that's what I'm saying. So there's not just a race problem in this country, but there's an intelligence problem. This kid possibly had a very low IQ. This kid definitely was a major suffered from major depression or something. And to be quite honest with you, he was a loser. And a lot of it has to do with, we probably have a jealousy problem in this country. Typically whites like him, they live in a country where the majority populace is white. The institutions are ran by whites, but he can't win. So what he does is he looks at Blacks and he portrays them as the enemy, when in fact the enemy is the person that's in the mirror looking at you. It's yourself. Because if you can't succeed in this country, if you're white, you're just a loser. Because this country really is tailor-made for you, especially if you're white. But people like that are just losers. Now, are there militia groups? Sure, why not? But generally speaking, militia groups aren't hunting down Blacks. And this was an isolated situation. Was it racism? Sure. But I think it was more to it. Mental illness, jealousy, stupidity, definitely some sort of lack of cognitive reasoning. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, especially when he said he claims that Black people are the problem, but he had to drive 2 hours just to find Black people. You just said right. It's like
Conklin, New York is 98% Black. I mean, white.
Yeah. How dumb can you be?
and that's what I'm saying. And so and that's what I said on my live stream about this dude. I said, this kid, it wasn't just he was racist. The kid was I don't want to say the R word, but the kid was definitely low on the spectrum of cognitive abilities.
Yeah, he was an idiot. Bottom line, Luke Casey says, and notice that these losers always find the areas that will least oppose him. Why did he not go to a city like Compton, East LA, Liberty City, where the gangs are fully packed?
And like I said, and let's not, and Luke Casey, let's not get it twisted. That kid definitely researched.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you call it? He did the recon, and he knew, okay, well, it's nobody's gonna put up a front here, but he knew if he went to someplace like that, eventually he was gonna get gunned down. And that's what I'm saying. This kid acted alone, and generally I would even say racist whites who are openly racist probably are appalled at what he did.
Because two of the people he shot were white.
And not only that,
you know what I'm saying? I'm like, wait, hold up.
He shot older Blacks. So it's like there's a level of just, it's a disgusting thing that he did, because he targeted people who had the incapability of protecting themselves, which makes it even more disgusting.
Right. At 9:19, Luke Casey said, I would say go to chaotic truth, understanding that he does not mince words. He does not mince words, and his words and will at times use language that might offend you. Yeah,
Well,
maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I mean,
well,
it's,
people who, but
look.
you gotta understand, Mandrell, and thank you, Luke Hazley. We are primitive. Um, we obviously are some sort of an ape, and we may have cars and computers, but we're still primitive. And it wasn't just 150 years ago. Um, we didn't even have running water in most towns and things of that magnitude. Most people, lived on some farms. They had outhouses. So the fact of the matter is that people who are offended typically are people who are not at a stage of development that allows critical thinking and critical thinking for them to analyze. And that inability keeps you in a primitive state. And I think the more advanced we get, the lesser you are afraid of words. If you look at superior cultures like the Japanese, for example, you could walk up to a Japanese and pretty much say anything to them. They won't generally they won't respond to you because they have an evolved sense of being. Whereas, I hate to say it, blacks, you could step on their shoe and they're ready to kill you. It's because it could be that we are still stuck in a certain time period that we need to get out. So just like blacks love to talk about the past, I think blacks should forget the past and look towards the future, and I think that's what will actually free us. Look, whether you're a liberal or conservative, Democrat or a Republican, whether you're independent or whatever your political party affiliation is, we have to become scientists and people who think and who are critical thinkers, man. I think that is what will free us, understanding mathematics and science and reasoning and logic. I think that's going to propel us to a new level of society. And I think the Japanese are already stepping on that plateau in terms of evolution. I know I went outside the box with a little bit of this, but yeah, you got to remember this kid that shot up these black folk. This kid is a descendant of Vikings. He probably has that DNA still dormant in him. And a lot of whites aren't really evolved either. I mean, yeah, the Romans were a very evolved white group. But that kid, his family might be of Viking ancestry. So these are things that we have to think about too. Maybe there's something in his DNA that's still dormant, like this violent gene. If you really sit back and think about the most violent whites on the planet. They've typically been Western Europeans because they're descendant of Vikings. The Romans were the more civilized whites. I mean, people have this stereotype about Italians, but Italians aren't as vicious as Western whites. The Italians didn't go out throughout the world colonizing on the same scale as the British did. Could it be that maybe the British and other Western groups are just descendants of Vikings and it's in their DNA to just conquer shit around them? I don't know. Yeah, but I'm on it talking. Yeah, your head off now. Go ahead.
No problem. No problem. Here's the thing. People in chat and people watching, the things that he is saying are definitely things to consider. If you notice, he didn't say that was definitely the answer, so don't take him the wrong way. Take what he says in context, in proper context, because these are things to consider. DNA is a world that we still know very little about. We know a lot, but in comparison to what it really is, we still know very little. But we are cracking the code.
Yeah,
and he's right. Critical thinking is paramount. If it weren't for critical thinking and swift critical thinking, I have no doubt I wouldn't be here today because of my experience in the military. You know what I mean? With what I had to deal with in the military. One for swift critical thinking. Listen, it's a life changer and a lifesaver. So here's what we're going to do, everybody. We're going to drop the link. And tonight we're going to bring everybody up one at a time.
Thank you.
Okay, no panels, because panels, I mean, I understand everyone has passions, everyone has something to say, but so that you, the audience, get a chance to express yourself, say what you contribute, what you want to contribute, We'll bring up one at a time, so that way everyone can have their say. Everyone has a time limit though, but everyone will have their chance to say something and answer. Give us your perspective based on what we said tonight about why, as African Americans, we hold conservative values, and we always have. But why do we vote Democrat? So many of us vote Democrat, and in the South, oftentimes, dude, it is they'll tell you, no, when you vote Democrat down the line, vote Democrat. But then again, you know, on these ballots, they have all these different laws and things like that you have to vote for. I remember the first time I went to vote, I was like, "What's this?" You know what I'm saying? I didn't know that they were going to have laws on there that we had to vote for. No one told me that. So the first time I voted, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. We have to vote. And afterwards, I was like, so we had to vote for laws too? Yeah. My mom was like, yeah. How do you think laws get voted in? I said, why didn't you tell me that? She said, I thought you knew. I said, well, Mom, I never voted before. How would I know? She's like, you know what? You're right. Now sit down. Let me teach you. You know what I'm saying? And she and my mom sat me down and schooled me on it. Okay, now this one, proposition this, and this one, and she broke it down like the laws and told me what they meant. So every voting election year since, she and I would talk about what laws are being presented. You know what I'm saying? I think that's something we should add to it as well. Let's see. Let's bring up Raw B Privileged. Raw B Privileged. Let's see. Hello, Robbie. What do you think about this timeline I put together in my notes? And overall, I mean, what have you heard tonight that you find interesting, or that you like? What do you have to contribute to it? Why we do have conservative values: pull your pants up, dress modestly, behave yourself, act like you got some home training. You know what I'm saying? The whole 9 yards. But you look at you tonight. By the way,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm gonna keep it PG, but I'm just saying. Okay.
Don't make me blush.
I'm just saying. You know. All right, Robbie, what you got for us?
I mean, I think this conversation was really a good one, and I think there was a lot of useful information. I'm so glad that you brought it up. I do find that your timeline was very historically accurate, but chaotic reign. I'm gonna say to you what I said to you last night, good brother. You have a tendency to come across as kind of super flamboyant and prejudiced against Black people. Now, do you think that if you read the room better, you would have a broader reach and be able to actually get that information to the masses?
I started the Chaotic Truth in November. I have been, I would say, successful in acquiring subs, being invited to conservative platforms and other platforms, liberal platforms. People have emailed me and have asked me to come on their show for interviews. I don't read rooms because I am who I am. And I don't care if people like or dislike me. I am the embodiment of what the founders envisioned, which is freedom of speech and other rights. But the greatest right is the first one I just named, which is the first right, the freedom of speech. And I don't attempt to be offensive. What I do is I attempt to question people's stupidity and inability to think. And if what I am saying to people is wrong, then why is it always being challenged then? Like, for example, if somebody were to tell me that there's a 75-foot tall dinosaur outside, I wouldn't even argue with the person. I would just say, oh, okay. So obviously what I'm saying probably is invoking a level of critical thinking in someone who has never thought about different avenues. Like, for example, and I'm going to end on this one, and you can ask me another question. When I said that Harriet Tubman did not free any slaves, well, I know Black Americans have been brainwashed to believe that. But when I give out reasons as to why I don't believe that a 5 foot tall woman with an Elmer Fudd musket saved grown ass men, when I talk about this woman must have been the greatest outdoorsman ever and the logistics of her travels, then people start questioning, like, damn, well, what did she eat? What did she drink? How was it possible for her to even infiltrate all of these plantations and never get caught? And so people start asking questions about history. So that's what I love doing. Go ahead, Robbie. You got the floor.
So, I mean, all of that is good and dandy. Like how I said, I think you're a really intelligent young man.
Thank you.
But when you're sitting there and you're opening a conversation by telling everyone that they're stupid, that's highly offensive. In fact, that's a turn off. I mean, I know some conservative platforms are, I'm sure, and congratulations on all your successes, that people are inviting you places. However, I don't really think it's very necessary, nor is it effective to open telling people that they're stupid. I also think it's like kind of super offensive when you tell people that like they're apes. I mean, scientifically I understand the point that you're making, and it is good to clue people into that, but especially as someone that's not from here. Your nationality is Nigerian, you said? So that further fuels a stereotype that Africans just on principle hate African Americans. And I mean, do you really want to fuel those type of stereotypes?
I have made videos, even on my old channel,
I know.
Eviscerating Africans. I have made videos saying that African Americans are the standard for all of the Africans in the diaspora. My wife is African American. I give smoke to Africans harsh. I just did about the South Africans. I literally called them savages. Now, are all of them savages? Absolutely not. But I don't see African Americans rushing to go live there, because African Americans, just like most people, know what would happen if you moved to Soweto or Johannesburg. Just like when African Americans question me about the statements that I make about Black people, all the while, instead of going to Haiti, they go to the Dominican Republic. Well, how come you didn't go to Haiti if you love Black people so much? Those are real Black people in Haiti. So what I do is I call people out on their bullshit. And I think that's the beauty of me. Now, me calling people stupid, listen, there are things that you will never know. There are things that you don't know. And there are things that you will attempt to know and not even understand. We are apes, all of us, living on a floating rock water in infinity. We don't know what is going on outside of this solar system. Let's be completely honest. We don't even know what's really going on the other celestial bodies, other than what astrophysicists tell us. We are not as advanced as we think we are. So me saying the word stupid is really an encouraging word for us to explore and dig deep into what really is important: science and math and engineering. Those are the things that I say. So when I say stupid, those words should encourage you to pursue science and to pursue intellectual pursuits. Because if you are offended by somebody saying stupid, then that means that maybe you are, for the first time, saying, maybe I am stupid or not as smart as I think I am. And I'll tell you who was very famous for doing this: Joe Rogan, whom I've been listening to for decades. Joe Rogan would call his live guest, bitches, stupid, and it was all in fun and locker room conversation. And that's another thing, Raw B. Men, we have a way of talking to each other, fellowshipping. You, as a woman, you just don't understand that because you don't have. Well, hear me out. You just don't have the same biological. Raw B, hear me out. You are a female. You just don't have the same biological structure and emotional structure that men do. Men, we talk like that to each other. And that could mean that I really love you by calling you a bitch. Not you, but I'm talking about another man. Or calling you stupid. Look at this dumb motherfucker in here. But women, you have a tendency to saying flowery, fluffy words to each other. And as soon as the woman leaves, I can't stand that bitch. So that's the difference between men and women. We say things up front, but we mean the opposite a lot of times. Me calling people stupid means that I love you and I'm stupid too. And I want us to be better than our primitive ancestors. Go ahead. You got the floor.
You know what? You almost sold that load of malarkey until you try to tell me as a woman I cannot possibly understand how men speak to one another. Now, I would go in and let half, but the admin have requested 5 minutes per guest.
Thank you.
But we will cross paths again. And I want to remind you, when we first met each other back when you had your old channel,
yes,
I told you the same thing.
Yes.
Apparently, that's been a hard message for you to hear. And I'm going to tell you this. You're stupid.
Okay.
But, that means I love you. Do better, young man. Do better. Bye, Mandrell.
Thank you,
Robbie.
Robbie.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
She's
you.
a sweetheart. Let's bring up Rush.
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 Salute.
Let's see if he has to contribute to the topic. If he's still backstage.
Thank you for the super chat, Lucchese.
No, yeah, thank you. Oh, Minka.
Yeah.
Well,
you popped up.
I didn't think I was up yet. I thought I was going later.
I heard that. We have a sister from the Latin community up here, and Latinos and Latinas. They, you guys, your plate kind of mirrors ours, even though
in a way,
one could argue that you guys are much further behind.
Minus the slavery part,
Yeah.
We're just modern slaves.
In a lot of ways, I brought that up in another broadcast of mine. How these indentured servants, like they come over here on green cards from Mexico, and these people hiring them would confiscate their green cards and their papers, and just make these people work within electric fences and whatnot. They got caught in Georgia just a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago. Chaotic. It was crazy story, man. Crazy story.
It's nuts.
What you got for us, Mika?
Well, I wanted to first touch on the whole civil rights movement, because a lot of people don't know that the Republican Party was actually primarily liberal and was leading the way for the civil rights movement. And they actually, I think it was there were 70% of less than 70% of Democrats actually voted for it, and more than 8% of Republicans voted for it. And so what was actually happening was that there were pieces of the Democratic Party that pushed it to legislation, but the Republican Party was actually backing it up. And it wasn't until the filibuster that because the Democrats actually pushed the bill to pass, the South was primarily Democratic at that time. And it wasn't until 2 votings later that they turned into Republican Party, because of the fact that the Democrats pushed it forward. So it's those are things that we really have to understand in order to look at the history and the true nature of it. And it's just during that, there was a lot of voting democratically has to do with the lack of education and the lack of legibility. So they can't read. That's why we have the donkey and the elephant, and then we have Black Panthers, because most people could not read. And so what people don't realize is that they are voting, and they primarily vote Democratic based, just like you said earlier, it's they're thinking they're getting more money back. They're going to be taken care of through the welfare, all these financial assistances, but it ends up coming out of our pockets anyways, because we end up paying higher taxes. So then when the Republican Party takes over again and we are in debt, everyone's like, look, the Republicans got us in debt. We were doing so much better with the Democrats, when really it was the Democrats that got us into debt.
Got us into this in the first place. Yeah.
And
by the way, I'm sorry. By the way, everyone, Minka is the co-host of the Great Pill podcast. You can catch her over on the Gray Pill Podcast. Please go and like and subscribe all their videos. Watch all this very good content over there.
My podcast husband is going to kill me because I always forget to do that.
You forget to do it. I do too. I go on other platforms and I never mention the channel. It's like at Black Man Unfiltered, it's like, why do you mention the channel? It's like, hey, bro, I forgot. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, when you're talking about such important conversations too, like it's not really often that I get to have these conversations. And I will say, I do kind of understand what you're saying. Generally, most women are more emotional because of our the way that we're biologically made. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that we're not able or capable of understanding, because in fact, that's why men and women need each other. The men need someone to understand them and make them feel safe. So it's kind of hypocritical to assume that we're not able or capable. It's kind of limiting. And I do have to agree, as a minority female, that I have also been in your shoes trying to pave the way and educate and challenge people. And this is obviously, it's your world, so you continue to live it the way that your truth deems it so. But I will say that I caught a lot more bees with honey than vinegar. And when instead of telling people how they were stupid, which I also did, I started to explain people when I was in that hole, coming from the hood, looking as white as I do, I got the living crap beaten out of me. And so I was like ousted in my hood, ousted in like the rich people. And it was really difficult. But instead of telling people how they're dumb, I instead tell them, this is the hole that I was in, and this is how I was able to come out of it. This is how it was probably like 4 or 5 years ago that I turned Republican, based off of understanding that Democrats are not really for the population. They want to create these benefits so that they can give us a financial burden. And once I realized that, I was like, oh, but so I actually am fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And liberal does not mean abandonment. A liberal actually represents the party that is more open to ideas, speaking for the minorities. So that's just, I know that we have like liberals these days. I do agree, have like, I'm in LA. Like, I know they stopped the 405 for some BS. Like, it's bad. But even here, I will say that most people are not liberal. Liberals are just very loud. Most people don't say what they feel and what they actually believe. They just are afraid of saying so because of the ramifications and cancel culture and everything. But it's just really important to understand why we, as a because this is all minorities. It's not just the Black community, it's also the Asian, Hispanic, any minority that came from another country typically votes Democratic because they actually don't read the details in each voting system. If they were to read like the laws that are trying to be passed, then you would be able to see that you could differentiate what you're voting for, and not, it would probably most likely be Republican that you're voting primarily.
Yeah. Right. Chaotic.
I have a
response.
I mean,
and for the record,
I'm gonna be very.
All three of us did that. Like, call people stupid. I'm one of them too.
Oh yeah, that's why I said it, because it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. We're all learning.
Now, listen. I said this on the Lapeef Network, and I'm gonna say it right here, and maybe this might go viral for you, Mandrell. You notice the lighter the woman, the more pleasant and peaceful.
Oh hell no!
Hey, mind you, my wife is a
damn. I cannot believe he fucking went there.
No, I said
sorry
it.
I'm sorry.
I said it on the. Look how pleasant the conversation went. It wasn't even though she's a Latin woman, it wasn't it wasn't none of that neck talking. It wasn't none of that. I'm trying to over talk you. She had an objective point by basically saying maybe you should do this, and it was very peace and pleasant. Look at the difference, and also people look at how a conservative woman behaves. And I said this on the Lapeef Network, and I say it on my own platform. I'm very happy that you are. That you still have liberal ideologies, but I'm glad you explained it the way that you did. You implement open idea and thought into a conservative background that you have. And that's what I do as well. but listen, I don't have a problem with the LGBTQ whatever community. Just don't force me as a teacher to teach that shit. And that's where the problem is. So I'm very liberal and open to you being whatever you want to be. But I'm so glad that governors like DeSantis, who I think is just like the young lady down here, is a person who is very conservative, but he's liberal. Look, you guys could be what you want to be, but you can't force these parents into a situation where they don't have rights over their kids in the classroom, just like if you were teaching heterosexuality. So I'm very open for you doing whatever you want to do in the bedroom, but keep it in the bedroom. These little 4-year-olds don't even have a concept of sexual behavior. So don't tell them anything. Tell them about arithmetic and science.
See, I'm with you on that, and unfortunately, we gotta move on, Minka.
I gotta come on. You gotta give me one little second for that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
1 second.
Okay.
I resent the fact that you're using me as an example because I am still a minority, and I actually understand more than anything that Black women have even more to fight for and fight against than I do.
Yeah.
So that's when you're only saying that, you're misrepresenting an entire section of your own culture. Yeah. And that I will disagree with you, Mandrell, because of the way that you say things and the way that you are so shocked, or you are so valued at the shock factor of things. I cannot say that I agree that I think that your way of educating people is so pure because you want to educate people. I think that you do. There's a big portion of you that wants to add that shock value for the views. It is no different than Fresh and Fit. And it's sad because you are so smart.
But hear me out.
Me?
But no.
You are, no, him. He's so
chaotic. Okay.
Yeah,
you said
right.
Mandrell. I was like,
Mike, hear me
reasonably intelligent.
Just hear me out for a minute. I've said this on other shows. Is it a coincidence that the Japanese, who are lighter, are more superior intellectually and culturally than their darker Asian brethren? And could it be that there is a certain aggressive level with darker people? And people, I think it's something that should be studied. It's a part of nature.
It has been studied. It's been studied break it down real quick. The Asian community did not have to fight against themselves or other people trying to take them over because they were the big dick motherfuckers that had a great wall protecting them. African culture, Mexican culture, Indian culture. There has been colonization that has taken their women, has taken their children, has taken their religion, has taken their beliefs, has taken their spirituality. They're fundamentally who they are, has been raped and pillaged. And so because of that, over time, they had to be aggressive to protect themselves, much like why dark-skinned women have to be so aggressive to protect themselves. There are more reports of darker-skinned women being raped and assaulted in that manner. And why, it's just 1 + 1 = 2. The Japanese culture has been very protected, and they have rules and regulations. Because of that, they're able to protect themselves. It's those very foundations that protect them. There's a book that you can read that you would actually love that's based off of the Japanese culture, and it explains all of that. And if you look at them, which you're using them as an example, it's because they have not had to protect themselves. They have been on the offense as opposed to the defense. That's it.
Gotcha.
I'm done. I gotta go.
I apologize, but we gotta go. We gotta get two more people up. Thank you, Minka. Let's get the other one. Smart woman, right? Let's bring up. Did he leave?
Rush,
you got to come up and stay, brother. Yeah. Okay.
What's up, Rush?
We only got a few more minutes to go. Jeez, what is with that guy's internet? All right, bring some. You got to come up and stay. Here we go. What do you got for us?
Yo, salute to you, Mandrell, and salute to CT. Know what I mean? I want to touch on two.
Okay, let's try it again.
I think somebody's like bringing me down or whatever.
Okay,
my internet's good. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man, with the reason why this is my perspective, I don't think this is like the end all be all, but my perspective on the Black Americans align themselves with the Democratic Party is because us as people, sometimes we're more of a following we follow the people that we idolize, and the people that they idolize, they tend to promote the Democratic Party to the point where it's shoved down to their throats, and have them, you know what I mean? Uh like it's like this, right? Because we tend to follow, like, the Diddy's and the Mariah Careys. A lot of them will promote the Democratic Party because a lot of them, they come from hardship. They might have came from the welfare system and helped them survive through their troubled times or whatever. So they would implement that into their lifestyle, where even though they are successful, but they tend to still carry that state of mind that coming from that kind of environment helps them uh it helps them
I see what you're saying. What
yeah.
you're getting at is that the people that we idolize, the Jay-Z's, the big time rappers, athletes, come from very poor backgrounds, and people from poor backgrounds, because of the past 40 years, have largely voted Democrat. They now carry on that same tradition and tout the Democratic Party, is what you're saying. And so since we look up to these people, we kind of follow what they do.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And now with
so
Joe,
it's a followers thing. I get you.
yeah. Now with the Joe Biden, with the I guess like the whole unisex movement they're having, where they allow people that believe that they're a female but really they're a male to be able to enter certain spas, like
bathrooms and things like that.
yeah, there was a situation that took place in the state of New York where a young child was in the sauna room with her moms or whatever, and this dude that in his state of mind, he believes that he's a female and he has the authority to enter a female's spa, which I totally disagree. And the child seen this dude, I mean, like, fully nude. And I think that we should implement certain laws where they should have their own section doing their own thing, because as a child, like, who know, like, I'm looking at the situation for the kid, because it's like that now that kid is forever scarred seeing that, and seeing that kind of seeing a dude like that, nude like that, prematurely as a child. I think it will have some type of psychological effect on that child, and they should implement laws to keep like the transformers and the guys that haven't fully transformed away from the youth. Like, I don't think they should allow them
I hear
to
what you're saying.
integrate.
Chaotic was saying the same thing in India with the previous guest, where, and I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I mean, do what you do. That's your thing, if that's your thing. But my thing is this: as long as you are not forcing me to agree with you if I disagree, and you're not bringing your stuff around other people's children. You know what I'm saying? You don't try to force me to agree with it. You know what I mean? And don't bring around other people's children.
It's funny you say that, because
don't bring other people's children, because, like you
state,
said, it could send signals to that child, like, hey, this is okay, but it could confuse the child. I get it.
Yeah, in the state of Florida, they trying to create a law where they have them make it like mandatory to not to call people that's in the alphabet community or whatever, not to call them gay. It's going to be a law where you're not allowed to even call them that. And I think that's kind of crazy.
That is crazy too. And a lot of African Americans who disagree with the lifestyle, I think that's why a lot of them have now began to part from the Democratic Party. The problem is they don't know where to go now. They don't want to vote Republican. Democrats just shooting themselves in the foot. So it's like, you know what I mean? They're like, I don't know what to do now. you know, but and that's crazy. But thank you, Rush. I appreciate it. Got to get to some more people though. Kiara, do you have anything for Rush?
No, thanks, Rush. Guys, please come to the Labuto Network tomorrow at 10 a.m. for Rush's live stream. Rush, do you mind telling them what the live stream is?
Yeah, I'm gonna be talking about Victor Von Doom, and the second subject matter would be about how society create monsters. I mean,
That's the title, yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a good one.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, y'all could come through. Yo, salute to you, CT. You know what I mean, and salute to you too, Mandrell. I catch you on the flip one.
Appreciate it, Rush. Thank you. All right, very good points by Rush. And our next contestant on the Price is Right is, bring him up. Oh, hey. What's going on? What's going on? It's my sister.
I am well.
And everyone out there, for our new viewers, this young lady down here, this really is my actual biological sister. Yes, we have the same parents. Yes, we grew up in the same household. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Hey, Luke Hazley. Luke Hazley says, I love that topic. See how Kiara did that.
Well, first and
professionally
foremost,
introduced, yes.
Because I know time is tight. I would just like to say kudos to both of you, because this has been a very interesting conversation, and one that does need to be had. Mandrell, you and I have had this discussion quite a few times about how much conservative Black people really are, but we don't really like to think of ourselves as conservative. I watch Candace Owens sometimes. I don't always agree with everything she says, but I do remember her speaking about how Black people need to leave the Democratic Party because they're not as for us as we think that they are. And she broke down the whole history about, what was it when you were talking about like the whole like the civil around the time like the civil rights movement started, like that's when we kind of really started shifting more towards the
in the timeline that I outlined. Yeah,
right.
That's something I agree with her on. And I agree with her. I don't disagree with everything the woman says, because that would just be disingenuous. I'd be lying if I said
she does have some good points. I mean, you got to give it to what she does.
Yeah, you got to give it to her. But I don't watch her content because like I said, fast forward to now, it's like, okay, you're just using the same gaslighting language as cable news does.
Right.
If I want to do that, I can just watch
personally. Why I still lean to the left, so to speak, is because I remember being in high school and this scholarship, this lady, she was like a recruiter and she was offering a scholarship, and she came out to the house and she talked to me, and this was a white lady. She was telling me about how, they would love to give me the scholarship, but she was like, unfortunately, they don't always have enough money when Republicans are in office. She was like, when Democrats are in office, they have more money to give out to students, but when Republicans are in office, they don't have enough because their funding always gets cut. And just being out here, as a starving artist, things do seem to be a little bit easier for people who don't make a substantial income. Things do run a little bit smoother. So me personally, that's why I, for the most part, went left. Now I guess the older I get, and the more my needs and things change, my views and all that changes. I would say I'm with you, Mandrell, like somewhere kind of like in the middle. I'm not all the way left, but I'm not all the way right. And because I do acknowledge I do have conservative views on some things. That's
you know who noticed it out of the, like, one day he told me out of the blue?
Who?
Mark. He said,
really?
Yeah, we were talking about politics one day. We sitting on the couch and he looked at me and said, dude, you know what? He said, what? I said, what? He said, the older you get, the more conservative you get. I said, no, I've been thinking this kind of stuff, man. I just don't tell you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Mark is a friend of mine, everyone. He happens to be a white man, but very good people. You know what I mean? You know, I give you a hard time. I'm sorry, I give you a hard time about it. But go ahead.
Your friend Mark, right?
Uh-huh.
You could ask him for $500, right?
Right.
And he'll give it to you right on the spot.
He knows he's gonna get it back.
Yeah. Sure, man. Don't worry about it, man. Here.
Right.
A black person, they call 1,000 people. You know, this nigga asking me for money.
You know what?
Nigga,
No, Keanu,
you can't even ask a nigga for $5. Go ahead.
You know what the crazy part is? You hear Keanu saying these things, and black people get offended. Here's why I ignore the people getting offended. I acknowledge them being offended, but here's why I don't make a big deal out of it. Everybody said this kind of shit. Haven't we? About black people? Yeah. Don't we talk like this about ourselves? Everybody does it. So it's like, why are you holding that against him? Leave him alone. Why are you holding it against him? Like, we all do it. We all make fun of ourselves. Say this
because Vaughn say I got 1 minute. So
okay.
I know the whole comment about, you know, the darker the woman, like the more attitude and the more, I guess, you know, static you get, so to speak. That's so not true. Like, yes, we do have, you know, some of our sisters who do have a bit of an attitude. But if all the women in your if all the women you know act like that, then you don't know enough black women. That's all I can say. Because the women I hang around don't conduct themselves that way.
Well, here's the thing. I can tell you from my experience that there is some truth to what he's saying. I mean, you know, listen.
There are. I'm not denying that there is a portion of our community that does do that. That they display those characteristics, but not all of us. Not all. Not all. Of course. And shout out to Mika for you know for speaking up and making that known too. Like that's not all the way true.
No, we're not saying it's all the way true, but I mean, come on. There's look, in my experience, a lot of the dark-skinned sisters, they come with that fire for no reason. It's like, look, I didn't awake a sleeping dragon. Listen, sister, I'm sorry. What happened? No, never mind. Don't tell me. My bad. I was just trying to say hello. You know what I'm saying? I don't need you to tell me hello. I'm just saying, I thought you were pretty, and I thought I'd like to take you out on a date. Why? To get to know you better. Why you need to get to know me?
You need to visit the live stream we did on the Great Pill podcast last night when we were talking about what women want and how to approach a woman. Because a lot of times when a man comes up in my face, 9 times out of 10, he ain't just saying hello just to be nice.
No, he's interested in you. You're a pretty young lady. I mean,
sometimes a lady just don't want to be bothered. Or sometimes if she rejects you or she already says no, and a lot of guys are still persistent. How long can you be nice? How much longer can you be nice?
But that's different if he's following you. You live in New York, so yeah, guys will follow behind you. Hey, sister, hey, shawty, hey, shawty, hey. Now, the fact that guy's even talking like that, listen. If you walk up to my sister talking like that, fellas, you've lost her attention. Period.
You have
off the bat. Hey, shawty, hey, shawty, hey, Slim, come here.
No.
It's like, no. Because guys have asked me about you. Hey, is your sister single? Yes. Hey, would you mind? There's been times where I was like, just to have a laugh, go right ahead. You know, chaotic. Like, because I know I'm like, go right ahead. But most of the time I'm like, no. Why not? You're not her type. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because I know off the bat what kind of dude she's going to be attracted to. But if it's, no.
New York again.
Great pill.
I'm not going to drag this out. I just want to say, great job, great conversation, gentlemen. And yeah, we need to have
Thank you very much. So. Now get out of here. Go take a nap or something. Get out of here. I have to close the show out.
Hold on. Let me guess. Oh, now the men are talking.
That's right.
This is a conversation for men now.
Yeah, this is a conversation for men now. Oh, okay.
Deuces.
All right, sweetie. See you later. Hey, Miss Creative. Yeah, that's what's creative. The thing is, like, the things you say, like, again, everybody, if you're looking for conservative content, or just good content in general, please go over to The Chaotic Truth, like and subscribe. And tonight he gave you more context into his conduct. It's not to be insulting, but it is to provoke critical thought. That's the intention. And the thing is, when people like him and myself talk this way to you, it does force you to think. It does. Maybe not right. Even if it's not even there in that moment, it makes you think. You know what I'm saying? It makes you question. And that's all we're trying to do. You need to question. Question everything. Question it all. I say, you know what I mean? Because the more you're questioning, the more you question, then the more answers you're going to go out there to seek, seek. And the more answers you have, the more your knowledge base increases, the more your intellect increases. You only get good things from it. Yeah. And Mika says, and you don't want women to act up. Okay. No, we don't want women to act up, Mika. We want you to be nice and pleasant. Act up sometimes, just not in public. Chaotic.
Yo.
Okay. Yeah, because we got to wrap this up here. Sure. This whole subject, again, first of all, thank you for coming out again.
Yeah, no problem, man.
I really am grateful that you came. Like I said from the beginning, when I first met you and saw you on Sir Hill's channel when I was on that panel, I was like, him. That's the one.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
That's the one. When I first saw you, I saw it. Like I said, I see it. That's the one right there. He can do it. And I watched the content. When I watched the content, I said, yep, I was right. You know, everybody in the chat, y'all give the brother a break. You know, you all do the same stuff he does. Stop the cap. Stop the cap. That's what I'm telling the audience. When it comes to chaotic and y'all hate on, stop hating on this dude. Stop the cap. Shame on you people.
Dangerously active. And thank you very much, Mandrell. Dangerously active acts. Where'd it go? Chaotic Truth. Question: how did Shushu behave? She acted pleasant and peaceful.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's just, and she's not faking it. That's just how she is. Yeah. She's a fun person to be around. Yeah. My sister's my best friend. You know what I mean? We've always been close. Growing up, we have always, I can say that my sister and I have always been close, even though there's a 6-year gap between us. You know what I mean? But we've always been close, and I was raised to protect my sister. You know what I'm saying? My father wouldn't have any. If my sister went out and got into trouble or got hurt or something, and my dad found out, it would be my ass. And I knew that. So it never happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, she didn't go out and do stupid stuff, chaotic. I wouldn't let her, you know. And plus, she's never been the person to have the desire to do it anyway. She's always been a good person. I mean, yeah. You know, I mean, she took the lessons of our parents and put them to practice, and look at her now, you know. But okay, on the subject, what do you think? Closing thoughts. What are your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts are for people to be open-minded, to basically start critically thinking. But in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, for us to evolve, we need to embrace, again, I'm going to say it like a repeating record here, embrace science and technology, mathematics. That's the only way. Embracing rational thinking, embracing intellectualism. Instead of listening to filthy music like rap, listen to classical music. If you're not into classical music, listen to old school jazz, something that stimulates your brain. Instead of watching Real Housewives of Atlanta or whatever new iteration that they have, watch a stimulating program. I think this will cure, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. No problem.
Yeah. I think this will cure our disorder. And I see a lot of disorder, not just with Black people, but with a lot of Americans. It's not just about being conservative or being liberal. There's a lot of messed up conservatives as well. But the fact is that the only thing that's going to save us is knowledge and understanding knowledge. And if you look at every society on the planet that lacks wealth, that lacks ingenuity, that lacks science, they're primitive. They're absolutely primitive. The most advanced societies are the societies that at one point embraced all what I'm talking about. That's what makes a society great. I know it may seem like a hard concept to follow now for some people. And trust me, I can understand that. It may be in the left field here. But one day we will be a spacefaring race. I'm talking about the human race. And to become a spacefaring race, tribalism, religion, drama, and beef, you can't have that shit on ships going to different celestial bodies. It's too dangerous. People need to be on one accord. And I know you guys are asking, what the hell are you talking about? Well, I'm pretty sure that's what people asked 100 years ago about the airplane. You know, a new concept. But we are going into the future. And you were not a slave. You didn't live under Jim Crow. You didn't live under apartheid. You didn't live under whatever injustice. People come to this country that have gone through way worse. Again, I dated 2 girls from Rwanda, not at the same time, in college. They literally saw their families wiped off the face of the planet during the Rwandan genocide that took place almost 29 years ago. And they never made any excuses. They went to class, they majored in biology, and they became medical doctors. The Kardashians are Armenian. You never hear them talking about the genocide that took place in Armenia. So all I'm saying is that when you look towards the future, the outcome may be a little bit better. Because when you think about the past, and especially about just 1 or 2 particular things in the past, slavery, Jim Crow, like a lot of you do, then you essentially enslave your mind. And then everything that goes wrong in your life, you blame it on slavery. You blame it on Jim Crow. You never move forward. And you are enslaving your mind on things that you know nothing of. Slavery ended 160 years ago. Mm-hmm. Jim Crow, let's be completely honest. Jim Crow may not have even been that bad. So what I'm saying is that man has been on this planet for, according to science at least, over 100,000 years. Modern man. Think about all the other atrocities if you're going to think about slavery. What about all the other atrocities that took place 50,000 years ago when your ancient ancestors were probably getting mauled to death by a mastodon? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that whether you guys believe I'm a shock jock, a comedian, a agent provocateur, you can believe whatever you want to believe. But there must be some level of truth to what I'm saying if I cause this much of an uproar with you. Because if I really was just talking nonsense, you would ignore me. How often do you go up to the person on the street walking around aimlessly who's homeless and talk to them while they're talking to themselves? You think that man is crazy. You think that woman is crazy. How often do you, when people say crazy things when they're drunk and you listen to a drunk person, do you take that seriously? So if what I'm saying, I guess, is on that scale, then why are you listening to me and being upset? If I were to say that there's a 50-foot tall Tyrannosaurus Rex outside, you certainly wouldn't believe me, and you certainly wouldn't even acknowledge me. But maybe it's some truth to what I always say. I couldn't be as chaotic as I normally am because I'm a little bit under the weather. But I would just like to say, embrace the future. You live in the greatest country on the planet. The infrastructure here is beautiful. the opportunities here are boundless. It could be anything that you want to be here. Nobody's holding you back. There's no white man holding you back. You weren't a slave. You're not being oppressed. Turn the TV off, turn the rap off, and pick up a quantum mechanics book. Pick up a stock, how to trade stock options or something like that. Excuse me. So yeah, that's it. Go, Mandrell, anything?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And message well received.
Yeah.
Now, everyone out there, my thing is this. I don't know what my Ant-Man's doing. They're supposed to switch the pictures out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but anyway. Okay, listen. Message received and heard from me.
Yeah.
Now, people always say, regardless of what you say about the creative truth, treat it just like anything else. Chew the meat and spit the bones. You might not agree with everything he says, and that's fine. You're not going to agree with everything everyone says. I mean, who does that? It's the same thing as if you disagree with everything someone says. You're being disingenuous. There's something in that person's message you can agree with. There's very few people you're going to meet that you're saying, well, everything that person says is wrong. Very few people. A few people out there in the world like that. Chew the meat and spit the bones. I'm glad he was here to come and help me dissect this issue and look into it more, because this is a question. If you guys notice my content, why my show on Wednesday nights is so different from everyone else's, it's because I ask questions that people aren't asking, and I do my best to get everyone to think critically about issues. One of the biggest lessons my father taught my sister and I, and he drilled it in our heads from the day we were born until the day he passed on to glory. Think for yourself. Think for yourself. Think for yourself. Never let anyone think for you. And then my sister now will call me up and ask me questions about various topics that she wants context on and information on. And there are times where I give her an answer. She's like, okay, listen, why do you know that? Not even how. Why do you know that? I'm like, because if you know the truth, no one can ever lie to you. I told her that years ago. I told her that more than 10 years ago. And since then, she's never asked me that question again. Why do you know that? Because she's not, it doesn't even surprise her, my knowledge base anymore. When I told her that, because once you know the truth for yourself, no one can ever lie to you. She said, huh. And that's what it is. I'm trying to get people to think critically and really get answers to questions that people aren't talking about to help you navigate life. That's what it's about. Critical thought. He's right. Critical thought, interest in mathematics and science. Look towards the future. I agree with him wholeheartedly on that. You have to look. Yes, acknowledge slavery happened. Yes, acknowledge Jim Crow and all that happened. Yes, it did happen. I mean, and we don't ignore it and don't say it never. Okay, cool. We got it. But where are we headed? That I get it. That happened years ago. Where are we going in the future? And how do we get there? That's what our focus should be on. That's what the brother's saying. And I agree with that message. And I will support it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I will support it financially. If I had millions to donate, I support it financially. Yep. Yes, look towards the future. Absolutely. This situation, Black people, we have conservative values, but we don't vote for Republicans. I take it as such, like it's subjective, but we've gone into this. And I think we have our answers. Yeah. Fast forward to today. I don't know what we got politically today. I think it's just a big bag of cats today. It's a big bag of cats. But don't let the smooth taste fool you. Don't get distracted by the nonsense. Because the big stories that they come out to distract you from a lot of times they use to distract you from what they're really doing. Okay?
Yeah.
So everyone out there, maybe what I said made sense to you, maybe it didn't. I'm not entirely sure. But everyone, thank you for coming out. We still got 30 people watching. I want to thank everyone for coming out and showing your support. Miss Creative, thank you for coming. As always, I do enjoy you in the chat. Everyone else, thank you. Carscar, thanks. Von Bryant, thank you for coming and being my moderator, man. I appreciate it. I like that you kept the time clock on people. Thank you for that. All right, everybody. That's going to be it. The Conservative Conundrum. Done and in the books. And thanks for coming out. See you next week.
See you guys.